right. So moving on from the favorites in the SEC to a school that, according to its head coach, is just looking to get back to a bowl game. And that coach is Hugh Freeze, and the program is Auburn. And man, what has happened to Auburn? One of the crown jewel programs of the SEC has had at least 4 losses in every season since the year that they played for the national championship in 2013, and has missed bowl games the last few years.
Yeah, but it breaks your heart, right? As a Georgia fan. How sad is that to hear that from your head coach, that you're just looking to make a bowl game? I mean, right. I get trying to set expectations and manage that, because nothing will get you fired quicker than setting really, really high expectations as a coach and not coming anywhere close to it. So I get where he's coming from, but maybe don't say that part out loud.
Well, the other part of his argument was that he felt that their recruiting hadn't been very good, but that's not true. Auburn has still had good recruiting classes. Even under Harsin, they still recruited well. And maybe they weren't recruiting as good as some of the other schools in the SEC, but to say that they haven't been recruiting enough just to make bowl games, that I don't buy that. I think that didn't look good, and a lot of Auburn people were shocked by that comment.
Well, I would be shocked too if I was an Auburn fan hearing that from my head coach, because they've also done pretty well in the portal, especially this past year.
Yeah, they got Singleton from Georgia Tech, who some people thought the best player in the portal, at least the best offensive player in the portal, and they got Jackson Arnold, from Oklahoma, former 5-star quarterback. So they've got talent at receiver, certainly. Cam Coleman's back. They've got Singleton. They've got some good players, and they've got a good defense. It'll just be if they can put it together and navigate. Once again, they have a tough schedule. They always do. You've got Georgia and Bama on your schedule every year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they make it back in the next year or two. I feel like Hugh Freeze is a good coach. We saw him do some really good things at Ole Miss when it was illegal to do the things that you can do today. And then when you look at, who they have to play every year, Georgia and Alabama. Georgia's not going anywhere as long as Kirby's there. Alabama, you don't know. Could keep, business as usual, or it could start degrading since, Saban's not there anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing, even though Auburn has not been as good as Alabama over the last 20 years and in the Saban years, they were the one team that consistently could beat Alabama. Auburn and LSU were the only teams that had even remotely okay records against Alabama in Saban's tenure. Saban went 13-5 against LSU and 12-5 against Auburn while he was the coach at Alabama. Everybody else, he crushed. Kirby's 1-6 against Alabama in his career at Georgia.
Georgia's done really well against Auburn going back to Rick. That's just been one team that Georgia's done really, really well against.
Absolutely. Georgia has absolutely dominated Auburn. I mean, we lost in the regular season in 2017. That's the only time they've lost to Auburn since
Cam Newton.
Well, 2013, the prayer at Jordan Hare. And then before that, and before that, Cam Newton. So that was a series, that when we were in school, the Georgia Auburn series was even.
That's right. It was like the craziest, most even series ever.
And the road team always won.
That was that. But it was down to so close as like 3 points separating them at one point. They had the same record, but separated by 3 points. It was wild, and now it's not even close. Which, hey, go Dogs!
Yeah, I think for Auburn, if the Hugh Freeze hire doesn't work out and they end up having to fire him in a couple years, it will just continue the line of bad decisions that Auburn has made at the coaching position for years. It started when Tommy Tuberville was there and he was still the coach, and they tried to hire Bobby Petrino while he was still the coach.
It always
And
seems like that Auburn fans never like their head coach.
they always want what's next. They always want the
Yeah.
next guy.
Outsider looking in, that's what the appearance is.
And I think it's also because they've always had a couple of power people that jerk that program around. You know, after Tuberville finally did leave, they hired Gene Chizik, who that was a questionable call, but then they had his offensive coordinator was Gus Malzahn. Well, lots of people saw Gus Malzahn as really the coach, not Chizik. They won a national championship with Cam Newton, and then 2 years later in 2012, they fired Chizik. They brought in Malzahn. Malzahn, seen as this was the guy that really got us the national championship, not Chizik. They went back to the national championship game in 2013, and then Malzahn stuck around for a long time. They always were like, we wanted to fire him, but then he would pop up and beat Alabama, and instead of saying, okay, let's see what happens next year, they would give him an extension on his contract. And they kept stringing him along, and they waited too long to get rid of Malzahn. And then they hired Brian Harsin, which was a horrible decision, a guy who wasn't from the South, who did not fit. And now they hire Hugh Freeze, who was a guy, once again, who was kind of disgraced from the SEC, both for stuff that is now legal and, personal transgressions off the field. If this doesn't work out, it's just more egg on their face. Auburn has consistently been a power program, but here lately, their coaching decisions have just really, really hurt them. And I think that's why they've kind of moved down in terms of the power in the SEC.
Yeah, that Brian Harsin's hire was so random. It was so random. Maybe they were trying to maybe they thought that they were getting the next Urban Meyer. I don't know. It was so out of the blue.
Yeah. I don't know if it was because he was cheaper because they were still paying so much money to Malzahn, or if somebody else didn't want to take the situation because they saw how coaches were being treated there.
That's a good point too. But if they were just doing that because of the money situation, I mean, they weren't doing themselves any favors, because if you string a bunch of bad seasons together, your program is really going to suffer. And then, you really will start to have bad recruiting classes. So Freeze better do something this year, because we know those Auburn faithful they got itchy trigger fingers.